Well, welcome. My name is Celeste Feta. I am the Joan P. Brock Director of Education and the Assistant Deputy Director for Art and Education here at VMFA. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt Shank from VFIC to say hello.
Celeste, thanks so much, and thanks for the partnership with the VMFA. So my name is Matt Shank. As Celeste said, I'm the president of the VFIC. I know we've got some colleagues here from public universities across the Commonwealth and community colleges, and many of you probably don't know anything about the VFIC. We're a private foundation that supports 16 of the independent colleges and universities across the Commonwealth, and we do that through largely financial support by providing extra scholarships and fellowships to faculty, but we also do collaborative projects for students and faculty across our 16 schools. And so several years ago, two board members of the VFIC brought me to meet with Celeste at the VMFA. And this was right before COVID, so maybe over 2 years ago. And we had the great idea of trying to bring faculty together from across the Commonwealth that shared the common love of art and teaching art and doing research in that area. And unfortunately, several attempts were postponed because of COVID. And here we are today trying to kick off this new opportunity for you to learn more and more about the museum and the great resources that it brings to all of you and your students. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope good things come from this short webinar today. So Celeste, thanks again.
Thank you, Matt. It's been great to work with you on this for, yes, 2.5 years. So we're excited to see it come to fruition finally. So today you're going to hear from several of our colleagues here at the museum that focus on elements of resources that we feel may be helpful to you or you might want to know more about. So that's just the schedule you see on the screen there. So we'll hear from distance learning, collections and learn site, VMFA statewide, museum internships, and again, time for a Q&A. And of course, many, many thanks, because thank yous are important. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to introduce my colleagues in distance learning, Sarah Rasich, distance learning content specialist, and Maggie McGurn, who's our distance learning educator, and they will talk to you about our distance learning program.
Thank you so much, Celeste. As Celeste said, my name is Sarah Rasich, and I coordinate the program, and I'm joined today by my wonderful colleague, Maggie McGurn, who you also see in this slide, illustrating our distance learning program. We started this program in about 2017, so we're in good stead when COVID hit to bring the museum to classrooms across Virginia. We meet with about 250 to 300 classrooms across the state every year, and many of those classrooms are collegiate classrooms. So during each session, what happens is what you see in this image. Maggie is visiting in the galleries, and students are examining works of art on view with her. And they are participating in a guided looking session with her. Typically, she visits with them, and they really only look at about 2 objects in 50 minutes. So it's a very sustained and deep dive into objects. Next slide, please. So I love this illustration. VMFA is very fortunate to have a portfolio of prints by Joseph Albers, who, as many of you probably know, is really not just a great artist, but he's was known as just a phenomenal teacher and a renowned constructivist educator who taught at Black Mountain College and at Yale. And alongside this print from 1972 that's in the collection, you can see a quotation by one of his students. So this is a note that she took in her notebook as she was listening to and participating in one of his classes. And we couldn't agree more with her sentiment. It's very aligned with our approach, and we truly believe that thinking in situations is as important as thinking in conclusions. Next slide, please. So our approach, like that of Albers, is very student-centered. It's inquiry-based. Students are invited to really interpret each artwork using a scaffolded approach to unpacking what they see. And During each session, they are invited to interpret works of art, really using a number of possible engagement strategies that Maggie will use. And in a moment, she's going to speak to you a little more in detail about how that works. But we wanted to share this graphic really to kind of illustrate the kinds of interactions that we intend to happen in sessions. And so far we have seen that happen. The first is that students are invited to really look at the artwork. And that seems simple, but really this is embracing that moment of encounter when they kind of take a short time to look and become oriented to the artwork and really collect and document their first impressions. Then seeing is really a bit different than looking. So seeing is where we really see students extending this looking time, kind of becoming very familiar with all aspects of the object. We have a phenomenal camera that we use on our cart that can really zoom in and facilitate sort of slow looking at details and capturing all aspects of the artwork. And this is where we really see students beginning to speculate about the object's meaning, about its makeup, its intended purpose. And then connect is kind of where the magic happens for us. That's where we listen to and can really hear students beginning to integrate information about the object and its maker and its original context, kind of into their interpretations. And this is a point too at which they start to connect this knowledge to concepts that they're studying in the classroom. And then extend is a final phase, which really often happens after a session has concluded. Students begin to synthesize what they've learned from their engagement with the art object with their discipline-based knowledge. And they might extend their thinking kind of beyond the object itself and present it within a broader context. And that may be, of course, concepts and ideas in other pursuits. It might be something that they're working on or grappling with in the classroom. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to share with you too, the VMFA, of course, has a very large and diverse collection, and that's really enabled us to present a large and diverse kind of menu of options for sessions. We've got about 20 sessions that we offer. Many of those can be customized, and they are organized into these sort of main 4 thematic groups. So global inquiry, examining art for context, is really designed to get students kind of looking at artworks through a global lens, kind of sharpening their critical and historical thinking skills. Looking to build skills is a suite of sessions that we offer, and all of these can be customized really to include work from any of the museum's collections. And this is helping them really hone creative, critical, and reflective thinking skills. Media and visual literacy is another set of options. Again, they can be customized to look at objects from across the collection, but really looking a little more closely at art making and communication. And then STEAM at VMFA are sessions where we try to set up scenarios where students can use art as a catalyst to practice more scientific and mathematical thinking. Next slide. I'm going to hand it over to Maggie right now. She's our distance learning educator. She is the one who makes the magic happen in the galleries with the students. And she's going to share with you, using this painting by Rosalind Drexler as an example of an object that she has used with college students quite a bit, and kind of share with you the way she determines how a session will flow, the kinds of interactions she will use with students, and the ideas they've had about this object. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Maggie.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. So like Sarah said, I'm going to just go in a little bit more depth about kind of what a session looks like and how we've used this particular artwork before. So this is an artwork that we've used with multiple different college classes, ranging from literature to art history to business. And as Sarah mentioned, our sessions are very student-centered and really meant to be a kind of laboratory where students can exercise thinking skills while also deepening understanding and curiosity about a particular concept or topic. And to ensure that our sessions align with your class and what you want your students thinking about, we work directly with you, and this is usually through a Zoom planning meeting, to create a goal for the session that in turn helps us determine the artworks and activities that we think will most successfully accomplish that goal. So to give a specific example, I'm going to share how we've used this artwork with a creativity and ideation class at VCU's School of Business. So the goal for this session was for students to practice getting comfortable with ambiguity and complexity, dealing with problems or situations or artworks in this case that do not have one right answer. And along the way, they would also be exercising their observation skills as well as their creative and critical thinking skills. So we started our time with this artwork with 30 seconds of looking time. And during this, I encouraged them not to write anything down, but to really just use this short period of time to get a sense for what they're looking at, to really take in as much detail as possible. And then I led them through an activity called Before and After. So they got into groups of 3 or 4, and I asked them to imagine that this artwork was a page in a graphic novel. And they were to decide with their group what they thought would be on the page before and the page after, using their observations of this moment that the artist Rosalind Drexler has given us. And then I asked them to come up with a second before and after scenario that was different from their first one. And then after that, we come back together as a whole group, we share our ideas, and we see that there is indeed a multitude of ways to interpret what is going on in this artwork. Students often bring up a range of scenarios with this piece, from mobsters in a courtroom, to a funeral, to infidelity, to 9/11, to people protecting themselves from some kind of airborne or environmental danger. And with each scenario, I ask them, what about the artwork makes you say that? To prompt them to back up their ideas with concrete observations. And then it's also during this discussion part of the session where I share a little bit more information about the artwork and the artist. And even when students are not specifically mentioning crime or film noir, which were Drexler's inspirations for this artwork, they pick up really quickly on the tone and the mood that she's creating and the way that she's emphasizing certain details, like the rings that we see that the men are wearing, the separation between the women and the men, the way that the monochromatic background really affects the emotional response to this piece. So the scenarios that students bring up are always dark and always melancholy. They mention emotions like grief, shame, guilt. And so really, when given the chance to look at and think deeply about an artwork, it's really amazing how students' observations and interpretations sync with and expand upon the ideas that the artist is playing with and the artistic decisions that they're making. I like to leave time at the end of a session for a moment of reflection and to give students a chance to write down their takeaways. So for the creativity and ideation business students, I've asked them to reflect on how they see their experience with the artwork translating to the business world. And they've said things like, it emphasized the importance of collaboration, that it's important to consider multiple perspectives, that the exercise helped build empathy, and that aside from dealing with a problem that doesn't have one right answer, there also isn't one right way to solve a problem. So that just goes into a little bit more depth. I'm going to hand things back over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Maggie. And I just want to clap my hands for Maggie. She really is an amazing facilitator working with students, and they really teach us a lot about the objects on view through those interactions. Next slide, please. So hopefully with this quick overview, you have a better understanding of the program, but we are certain that you probably have more questions about what is on offer and how to find out more. And we can certainly address some those questions in the Q&A, but we did want to invite you to please visit the distance learning page, which is accessible through the VMA website. You can, if you see on that left image, there's a drop-down menu under tours where you can click on distance learning, and you'll be able to see, if you scroll down under units and sessions, you'll be able to see all of the different sessions we have on offer. Each of those sessions has its own landing page, which has additional pre and post visit resources, but really most importantly, there are request a session buttons throughout, and that enables you to get in touch with us, to give us all kinds of information about your classes and some of your intentions so that we can get back to you and plan a session or sessions at the VMFA with your students. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Maggie. That was great. And again, if you haven't tried a distance learning session, I really encourage you to. They are wonderful and a great way to really introduce students to the museum, but also just getting comfortable looking at and talking about art. So now I'm going to turn over the floor to our interpretation manager, Courtney Morano, who's going to talk about the collections and learn sites. Courtney.
Hi. Yes, and I'd like to reiterate, Celeste, absolutely take a distance learning session. It really is a revelation. Highly recommend. It's just amazing what they do to get people to explore works of art. I did want to throw out there, we also have a guided tour program, and we have a person who coordinates college visits. So if you're interested in actually bringing your students to the museum, that is also a possibility, of course. But kind of sticking to the virtual realm, we wanted to let you know about some of the amazing access to our collections that we have, as well as some resources that we have developed to help you and your students incorporate art into the classroom. So we have a collections website where you can search our online search online for information about the works of art in our collection. And those are organized. I'll go through the organization of those pages, just a little bit high level overview of that. And then we have an educational resource website with currently over 450 resources for educators, students, families, researchers, with many different types of resources. So let's take a look. So if you were to go to vmfa.museum/collections, this is the page where you would land. So you can search in lots of different ways. We try to give people different avenues for how to search our collection. So I'll just go over a couple of those. You could enter just a keyword right here in the main search term. You could also search by continent, which is not necessarily our most popular way to search, but if you know that you're interested in looking for what we own, from South America, you could click on South America, and then it would pull up objects from our collection from that continent. So if we kind of move on to looking, you can also take a little bit of a deeper dive into the types of collections. So the way in which we think about our collections here. So organized often by culture or time period. So you can see the listing here: African art, American art, and then things like featured collections. So things that might be organized by a collector. We have a collection by the Paul and Rachel Mellon family. As well as things like African American art, Fabergé, which I think we're fairly well known for. But you can, again, just kind of go in that way. And so each of those collections will have a landing page where you can click here on one of these icons. We're going to look at Native American art. So just to give you an example, it's a high level look at what our Native American collection includes. It'll also pull together any deeper dive resources that we have created on that. So we have a couple of different what we call microsites or art in depth sort of collections or stories that we have created around some Native American art. There's also a slider here where you can see just a sample of works on view, so that the scrolling images across the bottom there are just works on view featuring. We have artist videos, so I think this is of big interest to most people, is what artists have to say themselves, or what people talking about their own works of art can tell us about their process or history. In this case, this is Virgil Ortiz, and we own a couple of amazing works of art by him, so this is a really great video. But we try to pull together within this collection landing page any videos that we might have on the subject, in particular, where we can, the words of the artists themselves. And those collection pages are also further subdivided into there's different organizations. So in this case, for Native American art, it is organized by medium. So quill work and beadwork, sculpture. Other collection landing pages are going to be organized maybe by time period or another type of theme, but it just gives you an idea on ways to think about the collection, ways to engage with those works of art. And then if you were to click on one of these boxes for a work of art, you're going to get the individual information on that object. So it'll give you, if there's label copy associated with that, you can see that here towards the bottom, or if it's featured in an educational resource, if there's a video associated, that's also going to be pulled in at this individual object level. So there's just a lot of different ways to engage with our objects through the collections landing page. And thinking about larger level search, if you might know exactly what you're looking for, maybe you don't want to search by collection, maybe you want to search by, again, keyword or an artist. So I just threw in a search term here for Muka, Alphonse Muka, just to see what that would pull up, a little bit in honor of Celeste, who's a decorative arts expert. But you can then filter that by the type of collection or something on view. So if you want to know something, if something is on view by a particular artist, this is a good place to do that. Or something, what is on view for a particular culture or collection, this is a good place to go. Of course, it's only as good as the data that we put into it. So sometimes there's a little bit of lag between the time something comes off view, we get it entered in the system, and then it updates to the website. So just take that information as you will. And then to talk a little bit about our educational resource site. So collections is really how you search about all of the objects and the different collections that we have. But our Learn website is where we really take those objects and sort of really dedicate time to thinking about how to use them. And that can be in the classroom, give you ideas on how to incorporate these things into the classroom with lesson concepts, pull all those artist videos together, again, different types of educational videos, and also resources for how to use the works of art if you were to come on site. So there's just, we think about tons and tons of different ways to access our collection again. So what we did when you land on the main Learn page, there's just different ways to search. So you could search by activity type, you could search by lesson concept or video or engagement activity. You could search by a subject area. So you could search by, women artists. You could search by African-American art, whatever subject area we have tagged. Grade level. So you could search by college in your case. You might want to search by what types of resources are most appropriate for the collegiate level. You could search by collection. So again, you can get a little bit more granular. And in all of these, you can choose multiple ones of these so that you filter your results even more. Or you can search by culture or region. So if I was to choose college, for example, I'm going to get a few pages of resources that we think are most appropriate for college. And sometimes they're going to span audiences. Sometimes they're going to be equally as appropriate for high school students as college students and adults. So, but just to give you an example, there's just tons of different resources that we have created with college students in mind, as well as other audiences. And you can filter those results on the side here. Just to give you an example of some of the different types of resources we have. And again, we hope that these resources are flexible enough that even if something is deemed as a gallery hunt or a gallery guide, you might find them useful for incorporation in the classroom if you can't get here on site. They're chock full of information that could be very easily incorporated into a lesson. So we have gallery hunts and gallery guides, so things that can be used to sort of get you from place to place within the museum, or again, somehow incorporated within the classroom. We have very simple engagement activities. And Sarah and Maggie were instrumental in getting these sort of created. These are just very quick ideas to get people to think about how to use a work of art. And again, this can be done within the physical space of the museum or within a classroom or wherever one might be. Just really simple ideas on how to engage with a work of art. And there's just dozens of these engagement activities that we have on the website. Again, just a quick look at something that can get people engaging with a work of art without necessarily having to get an art history lesson or a lesson in technique. So that is a very, very high level look at what we have to offer, because there's so much more. Again, as I mentioned, there's over 450 resources, and for collections, the museum has over 55,000 works of art in our collection. So there's would take you a very long time to explore, but we encourage you to do so. I think I'm going to turn it over to Celeste to turn it over to Jeffrey.
Yes, thank you so much, Courtney. And really the Learn site and collections, I mean, you could get lost in there for many, many hours going down the rabbit hole, but there's so much there to offer. And we really encourage you, just, if you have 5 minutes, just jump on in there and search and see what you can find. So thank you so much to Courtney and her team for doing an excellent job stewarding both of those amazing resources. So I am now gonna share my screen again. So let me just make that happen. And bring up our statewide section. And I'm going to introduce my wonderful colleague, Jeffrey Allison, who's the director of statewide programs. So take it away, Jeffrey.
Thanks so much, Celeste. And it's wonderful to be here with all of you today. And we're going to briefly talk about the extraordinary number of statewide programs and resources that are available to all of you. And before we go to the next slide, I hope most of your colleges or universities are already statewide partners of the museum. If not, it's free to become a partner, and you can go to our Learn portion of the website and click on Statewide. And the first thing that you'll find is access to a form that you can fill out that comes digitally to the museum, and you are signed up and have access to all of the programs we're about to talk about. So Celeste, next slide. Probably the most prominent thing since 2018 has been VMFA on the Road and Artmobile for the 21st Century. And I hope a lot of you have had the opportunity to visit the exhibitions that travel throughout the Commonwealth on this 53.5 foot trailer. And it is extraordinary. We have a most fantastic driver who gets it into some really amazing spots, but you've probably seen it driving up and down the highway. I should say that this is a free program. The only thing that we ask is, when possible, if our partner can provide lodging for the team of 3. Next slide, Celeste. There we go. And there's our Artmobile team, Sean Kane and Sakina Best, who are onboard educators, and Chris Hairston, who's the driver. And I will say Chris does so much more than just drive. He is a full member of that team and can do all the other stuff that we all do on board the truck. And next slide. There we go. There are a couple of images of folks on board the Artmobile and one of the exhibitions. Those are original works of art from our permanent collection that we curate based around a theme. And it also includes a lot of digital interactives. The image that you see on your left, once you've seen the exhibition, you can create your own digital work of art. And when you hit finish, it matches to an object in our permanent collection that comes up and shows you what that's all about. And then the object that you create is added to that database. So you now have a work of art that travels throughout the state during that exhibition, which is pretty cool. Another slide, Celeste, thank you. We are fully HDA compliant. We serve every type of audience throughout the state, K through 12 college and universities, a growing number of retirement communities, and we do throughout the course of an exhibition reach literally all corners of the Commonwealth. And next. There we go. We also provide artist workshops, and this is one of our most popular and traditional programs. We have about 40 faculty members who are part of our statewide faculty. So not only should you think about taking the opportunity to utilize one of these workshops, but if you are a working artist, you might consider contacting me and see if you would be interested in traveling some for the museum, doing workshops. We offer them for K through 12, again, college, university, adults. On the left, you see a workshop that we have been participating in for many years at Piedmont Virginia Community College, where local high school students and their teachers come in for an art day at the Piedmont. The image on the right is Kid Pan Alley, and that is songwriting based around objects of art. And again, that reaches all levels. This just happens to be one of my favorite photographs because people are so happy in it. Next slide, Celeste. We also travel performing artists. The group on the left is Conference Call, and it is comprised of two well-known jazz musicians from the United States, but also two jazz musicians from Europe, one from Switzerland and one from Germany. And those are available for tour throughout the year, and we love to work with our partners who may have a music program at their college or university, or just looking for something new. We have classical guitar, we have dance, pretty much anything you might look for. Celeste? There's a great opportunity. Jane Franklin Dance, an enormously successful presentation in terms of their own dance works, but also the workshops that they can do with students of all ages. And again, I think the joy that you see in these young people's faces sort of suggests just how popular and successful those programs can be. Celeste. And here's a great image. We're doing more and more murals. Of course, I think we think of Richmond being one of the mural capitals, not only of Virginia, but the United States. We have over 100 murals throughout the city. And here's Hamilton Glass and a group of students who created this on-site mural. So we love to get involved and develop a theme, work with the students and or the community on these projects and make it really interactive. And, you know, that's a great opportunity to leave an artwork that's going to be there for many years that really reflects what folks are interested in. Next, Celeste. We also have speakers on the arts. These are art historians, curators, educators who do standalone lectures. I'm there interviewing a panel of artists at the Workhouse Art Center up in Nova. And on the right, Carolyn Kreider-Ferranda, who is a poet and at one point was the Poet Laureate of Virginia. And she can do presentations of her work, but also do workshops in terms of creative writing. So with the Artist Workshop program and speakers on the arts, there are small fees. The Artist Workshop program, the fee covers all the materials that are used in the workshop. And for the speakers on the art, it's basically covering transportation for the speakers who are located not only throughout Virginia, but also from North Carolina, Maryland, etc. Celeste? There, fellowships. Shout out to the VMFA fellowships. We have the largest and the longest running fellowship program of any museum in the United States. We've given out over $5.5 million since 1940, and over 1,500 professional, graduate, and undergraduate fellows have won throughout those years. And it's really exciting to see some of the artists of note, include Sally Mann, Vince Gilligan, who will tell you that the two fellowships he got from this museum in large part enabled him to become who he is today, that successful director and writer of things like Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, etc. Cy Twombly, an internationally known artist who also cited the fellowships as taking him out of Lexington, Virginia, and ultimately not only to Black Mountain College, but to Europe and traveling and establishing himself as the great artist that he would become. And last but not least, me. And I can honestly say I would not be here talking to you had I not won both an undergraduate and graduate fellowship. And that also suggests that if you apply, you can win. I did. The application period for the next fellowships starts June 1st, but the deadline's not till November 3rd. We jury in January, and the artists that win are announced in February. The winners not only receive the fellowship. Professional is $8,000, graduate is $6,000, undergraduate $4,000, but also the opportunity to have an exhibition here at the museum in one of two locations, a Muse restaurant or the Poly Center where I'm sitting right now, and also at the Richmond International Airport. Great example of the locations there, but we also work with Capital One, Workhouse Arts Center, Tefra in Reston, and a growing number of other sites. The two images you see right here are opening of an exhibition we did out at Capital One, and they've been very supportive of this program. And I will say several of our partners have been doing online exhibitions during the pandemic and are looking at continuing that hybrid form where they build out a website for the exhibition, even if it is going to be open to the public in real time and space. So we do a lot. We also, next slide, Celeste. We do museum level exhibitions. So if your college or university is one of our museum level partners, I can use an example of Hollins, Mary Washington. There are others. We curate exhibitions such as Ansel Adams Compositions in Nature and share those with our museum level partners. And that comes along with curator talks for the openings, workshops associated with it. Everything that you can imagine. And I'm seeing a great question for earning a fellowship. And so I do want to answer this so everyone makes sure everyone gets it. We accept work in every medium every year, whether you're a fiber artist, a conceptual artist, photographer, printmaker, whatever. We bring in professional jurors. The professional juror is someone in the museum world outside of Virginia, and it's blind jurying. So in theory, they don't know who the artists are, and it is based entirely on artistic merit, which of course varies year to year based on that juror. And for undergraduate and graduate, we work with someone within the state, again, in the museum world, to jury those. And we generally award between 20 and 25 to 26 fellowships, depending on the year, because it is based on an endowment. Next slide, Celeste. We also have statewide educational exhibitions, and I really love what the folks did here in taking these two different educational exhibitions, putting them together in two different galleries and creating a lot of material around them. These are reproductions for the most part, but they're very high quality, and you can hang these anywhere. Unlike the museum level exhibitions that have to have the equivalent of what we would have here at the museum in our galleries, the educational exhibitions can hang in your library, in your smaller gallery, at your school. And they're utilized. Science Museum of Virginia keeps one of our educational exhibitions up. They just rotate through them, and they're great. Each of the exhibitions goes into a Pelican plastic case, so you could actually come get it in your SUV, or it's very inexpensive to ship UPS. Celeste? We also do a lot of work. We are the host of the Pocahontas Reframed Film Festival. That is a Native American film festival. It is now the largest Native American film festival on the East Coast. It's very prestigious, and we would love to have you attend. The next iteration of the Artmobile will contain one of the films created by a couple of Virginia artists, and they will also be available to come out to your location and do a presentation and show some of their work and answer questions, not only about the work that we're going to have on the Artmobile, but their rather expansive body of films that they've created. So please contact me or Trent Nicholas. We're on the website, and I hope that we get to share all these wonderful programs with you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Woo, there's so much that Statewide does that I don't think people realize. So that was really helpful to run through all of those great offerings. And now I'm going to turn it over to another wonderful colleague, Kim Frola, who's our volunteer and internship manager, to speak to museum internship offerings at the museum.
Thanks, Celeste, and thanks, Jeffrey. So, as Celeste said, I'm the volunteer and internship manager here at the VMFA. And as you can probably imagine, our main campus is very similar to a college or university in terms of its size, and that we need to utilize an array of professions from in front of the house and behind the scenes in order to be able to keep the museum open 365 days of the year, and to be able to keep our permanent collections free so that all Virginians and members of the community from across the country and internationally could come and visit our artwork, as well as being able to send the programs out on the road, as Jeffrey mentioned. So throughout the course of the year, we utilize approximately 60 interns. Most of them are undergraduate, although we certainly have graduate students, and we have high school students from specialty programs that come in and intern with us. The majority of our internships are unpaid. We follow the academic cycle for placements, so fall, spring, and summer placements. And I have a list of the common areas where we normally place interns. Now, with this said, we also get special requests. So if a student is interested in a particular area and it's not one in which we normally place students, I will certainly talk with staff and see if we're able to help accommodate for the student's interest. Or likewise, sometimes one of the departments will contact me and say, hey, we don't normally have this particular project available, but we would love to have an intern help with this activity that's coming up. So of the ones that are up here, though, these are the ones that we almost always place for each of the cycles for. So we have our advancement and development office. So students really get an idea of the fundraising aspects, whether it be through private donors, whether it be through grant writing, planning special events for potential donors and for existing donors. So they get a wide range of opportunity to experience the whole aspect of an advancement and development office. In curatorial, a lot of the positions tend to be focused on graduate students. However, with that said, if a student is an undergraduate and has already taken a particular interest in a specific area, so for example, contemporary art or African art, then we sometimes can place the undergraduate student as well in curatorial. And then education, as you can see and imagine, touches upon so many different areas and so many different audiences that we work with. So interns are placed in different departments throughout the division. So running from adult programs the whole way down through to early childhood education. And then of course, working like with Jeffrey and statewide outreach, then performing arts, evaluation with Courtney and her colleagues. And then of course, we have like teen programs and youth and family programs. So quite a few different opportunities within education. And then our information and communications technology program. We don't get a lot of applicants per se for this, but it's one of those areas that we definitely need IT across the museum. And our department is really wonderful about working with interns in this area. And then marketing and communications, registration. So interns are assisting with helping to make sure that the information that we have on hand related to all of the artwork in our collection and all of the artwork that's maybe on loan going out or that's coming in from other museums. And then, as I mentioned, we have other areas if a particular department has a project coming up or if students have a particular interest. We are able to do some J-term or January term placements if your school or university happens to have a January term. And we do work with students to help meet their criteria if they want to do an internship for academic credit, if they have a work study eligibility, and also if they sometimes students come with their own scholarships or grant funding. So we definitely try to work with students and their respective faculty members at their schools to help them meet the criteria of their program. So for our unpaid internship cycles, the spring application deadline is November 15th, summer February 15th, and fall July 1st. We will accept late applications and applications outside of the regular cycle if there are positions available. I will say that for the summer, we've just started reviewing those applications. So the students who met the first application deadline will of course be given first consideration. But with that said, if you have students that are still interested in applying for summer, please have them go ahead and submit their applications. For the unpaid positions, additional information can be found on our website under the college programs. or you can contact me directly. Next slide, Celeste. So we do sometimes have paid internships. Those are usually through different grants that we are able to obtain. And for the paid positions, students do need to apply through the Commonwealth of Virginia's job site. The VMFA is part of the Commonwealth of Virginia system. And so we do post our paid positions on the jobs.virginia.gov website. We also post them on our VMFA .museum site, but if a student or an applicant finds a position there, it'll take them or give them the link to the jobs.virginia.gov site. What's important about noting on this is that a lot of colleges and universities use Handshake or other types of platforms for posting positions. And so even though those positions may be posted there, the applicants still have to go to the jobs.virginia.gov site to apply. We currently have 4 paid positions that are posted. All 4 of them are in conservation. 3 of them are undergraduate pre-program positions. Those are designed for students that have an interest in arts and science and maybe haven't heard of conservation before or just starting to explore the area of conservation. And the idea here is to create a pipeline of students who are starting to learn early enough in their educational careers to be able to get the prerequisites that they would need to be able to go on to the graduate level in conservation. And so then the next step is to apply for a graduate level position. This particular summer, the focus is going to be on paper conservation. We have a paper conservation lab. We have we have an objects lab and a paintings lab. And so we rotate those opportunities throughout the summers. So the application deadlines for both of those, or for those 4 opportunities, are listed on the slide. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our volunteer opportunities. If you or students are in the area in Richmond for any given period of time, whether ongoing or just occasionally, we do offer a variety of volunteer opportunities. I've only put a few up here as examples, but we have like our Ask Me ambassadors, who are greeters and co-checkers at the main entrance. Those are ongoing assignments, but they're flexible shift options that match the hours of the day that the museum is open. So as you can see, we have 3 shifts daily, 7 days a week, and then we have extended hours Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday evenings where there are shifts available. And then we have episodic volunteer opportunities, such as our family day events, and these may happen 3 to 4 times a year. Our next one coming up is Celebrate African and African American Art on June 17th. The volunteer time frame listed there is from 9 to 1:30. For some of the longer volunteer days, if it's a 1-day event, we volunteers can come in and do the full day, or they can do a half of a day type of a shift. So it's really convenient for students that are trying to get service hours, either for school or extracurricular activities, or for community members that just want to come in and be a part of the museum from the volunteering staff side of it, and see how the programs are run from that end. And again, my contact information is up there. And if you do have any questions or interest, or students, do please direct them my way. Thank you. Oh, I have one more slide. Sorry. Celeste, can you forward it?
Yes, I can.
So I do oftentimes, when I do the panels with students, they'll ask for some skills or some tips in terms of preparing their applications, or what we look for from the museum's end. And so these are a couple of the key ones. As you can imagine, at a museum, whether you're up front or behind the scenes, good interpersonal and customer service skills are so important. And I think it's really key for us to mention or remind students that any type of part-time jobs that they have, or volunteer opportunities that they have, for them to think about how they've used customer service skills so that they can highlight that in their cover letter or in their resume. Flexibility, of course, is key. Being team and mission oriented, interested in learning. And then cover letters. I know that at the museum, the majority of our hiring managers do like to see a cover letter. So I do like to encourage students, whether they're applying at the VMFA or at other places, that they definitely consider submitting a cover letter, even if it's not requested, and that they tailor that cover letter towards the position and the organization that they are applying to. And then, of course, we all feel like this is something that should go without repeating, but it's still as important to repeat, is proofreading those application materials, checking to make sure that the applicant is included, what's been asked for, no typos or grammatical errors. And this goes for both students as well as for those who are recommending for the students. It just never hurts to have somebody else check them. Especially what I find is that, people are applying at the same time for multiple places, and so they forget or miss. They might catch at the top of the letter the right organization, but by the end they haven't made the change and that type of thing. So just proofreading or having somebody else proofread those applications. Interviewing skills. It seems to go in cycles. Some cycles, I feel like we have students that come in and they've either practiced with their career services on campus, or when they were in high school, they had practiced mock interviewing. And then other times I feel like students come in and really haven't had that much opportunity to practice interviewing. So I highly recommend that students spend some time with their career services or with their roommates, practicing at least commonly asked types of questions so that they can prepare for the interviews and have that confidence and that poise to be able to respond to the questions that are being asked. And then, of course, I always recommend volunteering or interning. We have, in fact, I'm thinking right now of a volunteer that started with us in September and who is now, he started volunteering as an Ask Me ambassador, and now he's interning in the registration department. And so we definitely like to promote or hire from within as we can, and to help build that pipeline along. And join and participate in professional organizations. This is really important that I like to focus or have students think about, no matter what level they are in their educational career, starting to build those networks, starting to meet with others who can help to provide them with guidance and support as they're building their educational and their professional careers. And then a big thing for housing options, and this primarily comes into play with our summer interns. Most of our spring and fall interns do tend to come from colleges and universities within the locale, just because they're also taking classes on campus. And then during the summer, there's more flexibility. But we definitely, finding affordable housing can be difficult, safe, affordable housing. So there are sublets from other local students that some of our interns are able to take advantage of. VCU this past summer allowed for subletting in their housing, and we had a couple of interns that did that. Some universities and colleges are great with helping students network with alumni in the area so that they can find a place to stay. And then some of our students have rented Airbnbs that are within walking distance of the museum. And I just want to put it out there that we really need to encourage students to be careful of scams. This has become really, really big in the housing market area in the past few years. And so people will put down a deposit and then come to find out that the housing doesn't really exist. So we really encourage that if a student is coming from out of town, that if they find someplace that they can try and find a connection either with us at the museum or with somebody else that they know in the community, even if it's an alumni that they're not staying with, if it's somebody that can actually go by that facility and make sure that it really is an actual housing option. Okay, and with that, I will hand it back to Celeste.
I want to again thank everyone for being here today, presenting about your areas, and big thanks to Matt and VFIC for really starting this conversation for a program like this. And I know it's just the beginning of a great relationship as we learn to support one another. And again, VMFA, is here as a resource. I know that was the title of the program, but we really believe that, and we're really excited to work with college faculty, students at any time. So thanks, and I hope everyone has a great day.